Welcome to the Marriage Can Win show. We are your relationship experts. I'm Eric, and this is my wife, Dr. Sakeisha.
Here at Marriage Can Win, we educate, we empower, and we encourage couples to embrace that marriage can win, especially when you focus on three key areas: improving your communication skills, developing your money management skills so you're not living paycheck to paycheck, and enhancing your intimacy skills.
Now, we like to invite all of you, plus your family members, to join the show, join the broadcast. Now, let us know what city and state that you're viewing from. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat so we can ask our guests.
Now, we are so excited. Make sure that you stay connected with us on Instagram and Twitter under Marriage Can Win. And tonight, we're so excited. You know, at Marriage Can Win, we love connecting you with experts in their fields that can help educate, empower, and encourage couples. And we have a dynamic couple joining us this evening, and we are so excited. We have a powerhouse of entrepreneurs, and we're going to be diving deep into the topic, Do It Afraid. We know this is a new normal for couples. We know there's a shifting in households and things aren't as they usually are, but we know that change is okay. Sometimes you really need to transition into what God has for you. So sometimes you just have to do it afraid. And the couple that's with us tonight is going to help encourage you to do it afraid. Yes. Joining us on this evening are going to be Stan and Chereace Richards. It's a powerful couple. They are entrepreneurs and they are redefining what it means to be successful. Chereace is a DC native, and early on in life, she knew she was not going to follow the status quo. She excelled in school and she received her degrees in computer science. Her focus and her dedication to her career allowed her to go from an IT specialist to software sales engineer, almost quadrupling her salary in less than 5 years. How many of you know that's an amazing accomplishment? However, this success was short-lived. There was a sudden layoff that forced her to reevaluate her life and motivated her to act differently. Now, we are super excited. She has her husband, Stan Richards, with her this evening. They both realized really quickly they wanted more out of life. And after spending years upon years of trading hours for dollars, they began a career in the direct sales industry and quickly rose to the top of the company. But in under 2 years, they were both able to retire from their six-figure income jobs and focus on their family and build their business full-time. Now, how many of you know sometimes there are things or shifts that take place in the business realm that cause us to have to shift our minds, shift our thinking? And this dynamic couple did just that. Together, Stan and Chereace travel all across the country speaking on the importance of being healthy, wealthy, and wise. Now, they've been featured in magazines, received numerous awards. They've put out their authors, and we're going to give them the opportunity to share all of that information with you on this evening. But I am so excited and so ready to dive down deep into the conversation with Stan and Chereace. Welcome to the Marriage Can Win live show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having us this evening.
Yes, it is an honor. So we appreciate you guys inviting us to be in the conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, the first question is that we normally want to find out, how long have you guys been married?
Oh, so we're going to be celebrating 20 years. He's still hesitating. We're going to be celebrating 20 years in August. So we are excited about that. We have 2 boys. One is 18, just finished up his freshman year in college. And then the other one is 14. He's going to be heading into high school in the fall.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So now you have...
I want you to share with us. You've done so many dynamic things. You have to excuse me. I struggle with asthma.
Tell us, what was your aha moment that got you going from the bus to the Bentley?
Well, here's what happened with me. Back in 2005, I always say that change happens two ways. It either comes from repetition or from a traumatic impact. And for me, guys, in 2005, it was a traumatic impact. It was around December of 2005 when my brother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it really changed my life because at that point I began to look at the way I was living. Chereace and I was blessed with 2 full-time jobs. I was a bus operator in DC, working 80 to 100 hours a week, 6 to 7 days a week to make the six-figure income. But what I didn't have was time with my family, my wife and kids. So when my brother got sick, I really began to pray and ask God to send something my way. And starting the first of the year in 2006, I began to open my mind up for different opportunities. And that's when we were exposed to the industry.
Now, what's amazing, when we first started talking about the fact that you guys were able to transition from your 6-figure jobs to entrepreneurship. And you shared a little bit about what happened with your brother. Now, what piece of advice would you have for those couples that say maybe facing that same situation? They find themselves in a place where a transition happened, like this new normal, where jobs may not be as secure as we anticipated they would be, and they have to start to look to reinvent themselves. What piece of advice would you have for couples that might be facing that same situation?
Well, what I would say is, nothing is promised, but God and His promises. Those are the only two things that's promised. So what I would say is to make your move, because you never know when the time is going to run out. So, whatever you're fearing to do, we must always keep in mind that I always say that our DNA is perfect because it's God's spirit. So that desire, that burning desire that we have inside, is just our intuition and the Holy Spirit telling us that we should be moving towards that direction. And of course, fear is holding us back, but right beyond that fear is where your success lies. So whenever I experience fear, I begin to move towards the fear versus retreating from the fear.
Because most people that are watching, they're like, yeah, I would love to start a business. But the thing is, you got to have a mindset shift, because going from corporate America, having that safety of getting a check every 2 weeks or, however they get paid, it's a constant check and you got benefits. To switch to where basically you become a hunter, you got to go out and kill, and you eat what you kill.
That's right.
So that's a big mind shift.
Yeah.
And so you got to change that mindset from that day-to-day to entrepreneur. So can you give some tips to our viewers of how can you make that transition?
Yeah, no, I can speak firsthand to that, because back in 2002, I was laid off in corporate America. And it was a wake-up call for me, because what I realized in that moment, we were newly married, we were starting our families, so our lifestyle depended on 2 incomes. But what I realized was that I never wanted my income to be based on somebody else's decision, because corporate America just made a decision that my services were no longer needed. And so in that moment, and I believe we're in similar moments, similar times right now, where it's a shift and we have an opportunity to make a decision that can completely change our lives. And so I believe the first step is just making a decision. Like, I decided I did not want my income to be based on corporate America or some other person, right? And then the other thing was that I needed to start, surrounding myself with other people who were having success, started, being a student of entrepreneurship, being a student of the industry, because I realized I didn't have the tools. Like, I was working, but I had the desire. So I think that when you make that decision, you have that burning desire, and then you can begin to make what I'm calling right now, like in this season that we're in, quantum moves in quarantine.
Yeah,
I like that. I
love
like
that.
that.
Yes.
Moves in quarantine.
I am also all too comfortable or all too familiar about that getting laid off because I had a six-figure sales engineer position, which I loved. I could work from home and I traveled to the clients. I did presentations and I worked on $1 million deals all the time. And so until that end of that quarter, when I thought I was getting a promotion, I found out they cut the whole team in half. My director was getting laid off. Oh my goodness! So I'm understanding exactly how that feels. And like I said, I'm too familiar with it. But then I've always had that entrepreneur shift. So I quickly turned it back right into the entrepreneurship and said, hey, you know what? We're not going to get caught with our pants down anymore. We're going to have multiple streams of income. Right. And then my wife had a similar situation with her. She had, health challenges. Right. And so.
But you know what? Why don't we speak to those couples where you may have one that has that entrepreneurial spirit and the other one that doesn't? Right. And that in and of itself may be a challenge, because I'll be the first to admit, while he was comfortable with flowing from corporate America to entrepreneurship, I was different. I was reluctant. I just saw six-figure income out the window, and I was thinking the mounting of bills. I'm thinking about the kids. I'm thinking about college, because a lot of times couples don't necessarily plan for that unexpected.
They don't.
So what tips or strategies would you suggest to those couples where you may have one that has that entrepreneur bug and they're ready to just take it and run with it, but the other one may not be as enthusiastic about that?
Yeah, well, I think you need a plan, right? I think you definitely need some type of financial plan, right? That's something that we're super passionate about. But I mean, that was us, right? Stan was more entrepreneurial than I was. I was corporate, I went to college and got the degrees. And so I was climbing that corporate ladder. But let me tell you this, what I will say, and Eric, I'm sure you can relate to this. I believe that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us.
Yes.
Right. But with the husband and wife, right, you got to understand that you're individuals, right, with individuals' desires. And so for a long time, Stan was the entrepreneur. He was the one that even saw the opportunity in the industry that we were embarking upon. Wow. I was like, we're gonna do what? We started a business.
Let me tell a story real quick. It was so funny. It started right here in our house in our basement, and what we were marketing back then in 2006. It was video technology that was on phones, house phones, and I had Googled voice over IP, and I knew it was the way of the future. And so when it was presented to me, I looked at it and I was like, well, you know what? In 10 years, we're going to have video on our phones. So let's just get in. And I told Chereace, and she was like, no, I'm going back and get my master's degree. I said, for what? We're going to be rich.
There you go.
Because I was so excited about this opportunity, embrace this opportunity. And she wanted to go back to college, but I thank God that she we worked it out and we moved forward in the industry, and it all worked out well. She did end up getting her master's too.
I did get my master's degree, but let me just say this. I think that for couples, you have to support each other.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Like, God gives us, each of us, visions. He gives us dreams. And what burdens us so much, because we see it a lot in business, because we work closely together, where one spouse is out front and the other one is kind of, laying back. But what I'm always confused by is the couple or the spouse that's not supporting the person that they love. Yeah. Right? As long as they're not making foolish decisions, they're not putting the family in jeopardy, and you guys come up with a shared vision and a shared plan for the money you're going to spend, the risks you're going to take, you have to support your spouse. And to do anything other than that, I think it's crazy.
Yeah, and let me just add this really quickly. And it was so funny when we embarked in the industry. Keep in mind, I was a bus operator. High school educated. Never spoke in front of people. Never did a presentation. So I could barely even speak. And Chereace used to, her mother and them used to laugh at my presentation all the time. She really helped me in that area. She really lifted me up in that area to help me to become a better speaker. And in turn, I was always the extrovert, and I helped her to become from an introvert to an extrovert. So it ended up being a win-win.
And I think what you're saying is really important, how as a spouse, it's important to see your spouse's strengths and speak to them and encourage them. And there could be some areas in which they may not be as strong, but you balance them out. And that's really, really important during these times. And I thank God for my husband, because he was the one that said, you know what, you really need to, let's consider this entrepreneurial space. And he had to break it down. And it's really important, because look at where we are now, right. Whether I wanted to receive it or not, we are in a posture now where, ready or not, God's like, hey, ready or not, it's time to shift. And it makes it that much easier in your relationship when you have that support, because you can't operate in fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. You've got to operate in faith. And like my husband, I don't know how much he didn't really share, but this transition time was not a planned one. It was one in which, you know how you feel that nudge, like it's time to shift, it's time to transition. And I kept fighting it, because I was like, no, God, not yet. No, not yet. And then finally God was like, okay. When I found myself on the floor at my job and the ambulance was having to come and get me, scary time. And fortunately, God had worked it out where my husband just happened to be in town, because he was living in Miami when I was living in Orlando. And when we had to make that phone call to say, hey, your wife is passed out, she's on the floor. I was like, okay, God, I got you. I'm not going to fight anymore. So, and I started to be more receptive, but it's important to have those conversations. He had been planting those seeds for quite some time. And I started to say, hey, a lot of times, are we really prepared for what we prayed for? I've been telling God for the longest, I love working with couples. It's exhausting. I love doing it, but doing it after working 14-hour days back to back to back, I didn't feel like I was giving my best to some of my couples, and I wanted to do better. And I kept saying, okay, God, I'd love for the opportunity just to be able to serve them wholeheartedly. Well, guess what? That opportunity presented itself. It just didn't come packaged the way I thought it was going to come packaged.
Absolutely.
But it's a blessing to have a husband say, you know what? Now, instead of working with couples part-time, we can transition full-time. And it was a blessing in disguise.
There's always a defining moment. Now, and we say this a lot. It's a defining moment in relationships and our lives. And we had both together. Because we have been married now, going on 22 years, and been together 26 years, which is pretty much half my life. But during our defining moment in our relationship is when we birthed our first book out, which is called Marriage Can Win. And what we did is we took from our experiences, we find the three biggest issues that causes a division in your relationship, which is communication, finance, and sex. And so what we did is we came up with all the strategies and tools to overcome that great divide. And we have became specialty. We specialize in all those different areas. And so that's what we had to do, was to reinvent ourselves. So we got the trainers, we got the John Maxwell certifications, the life coach certifications, the marital facilitators, we're licensed financial services advisors. And so we had to reinvent ourselves to be able to thrive in our businesses versus, really trying to stay in corporate America. Right. And so that's that mindset. Yeah. And that's that reinventing of yourselves, from corporate America to entrepreneurship.
So Chereace, did you have an aha moment? Because I know Stan was sharing with us a little bit at the beginning. Did you have a specific aha moment in business where you just said, you know what, this is not working for me. This is not ultimately who God called me to be.
Well, I would say that because I was new to entrepreneurship, background in IT, starting in this industry of direct sales with no experience, it took me a minute to really figure out my voice. Okay. And I will say that because Stan was the one who was, in front of the room. He had personality, he had the jokes. And for a long time, I would look at images of success and what I thought success looked like, what I thought success talked like and behaved like. And an aha moment for me was when I realized was that wasn't working. I couldn't tell a joke like Stan. I couldn't like this person, So I had to really, really take some time to figure out what my voice was and get comfortable in my own skin. And that was some reinventing of myself, right? Because the person I am today is not the same person I was when we made the decision to get started in entrepreneurship in 2006. So it took some redefining of myself. It took self-discovery. It took transformation. And that process took me several years. I tell people I'm not a fast learner, but I'm a thorough learner. When I get it, I got it. So it took me a minute to get it. But when I got it, then I was able to create the lasting success that I wanted in my own skin, authentically for myself.
You know what, Ed? It's funny as you're talking. I'm seeing the comments coming through, and I'm looking at a lot of the comments. Stan and Chereace are great trainers. Yes, Stan and Chereace shift, and everyone is, they're echoing you. They're saying, "Hey, you guys are a dynamic couple." So isn't it amazing to see where you were versus where you are now? And I would encourage other couples do the same. Be connected with other like-minded couples that weren't afraid to step out on faith, to launch, to reinvent themselves and be willing to do something different, and to realize we had to learn, we had to complement one another. Because Eric, when he has one of those magnetic personalities, like he says Stan has, he can tell a joke, he can do, all kinds of things. And I'm just standing there like, okay. Okay.
Right.
But I had to find my own voice and then walk into who God was calling me to be. And sometimes that's not an easy task. It's very easy to fall in your mate's shadow, but he would sometimes he'd be like, no, now you do it. You've got to do this. You can lead this. And he would just kept pushing me to step out of my comfort zone. And sometimes you find everything you need is going to be outside of the realm of your comfort zone. So since we're talking about doing it afraid, let's talk about stepping outside of our comfort zones a little bit.
Well, from one of our previous shows, I always was able to say, when we talk about individuals and couples, is that now, instead of tearing each other down, we have to build each other up, no matter where we are in our life. Because one of us may be having a hard time, or we may be trying to develop a new skill. That's when the other one has to build each other up, and instead of tearing each other down, because you're a team. And you're not in competition with each other. Right. You're a team. So you're as good as each other. Not the weaknesses, but the strengths. And then you help each other in the weaknesses as a team.
That's one of the things that we learned very early on. Our brand Love and Business was all about showing other couples how you can build a successful business together. And the beautiful thing about pushing each other and stepping outside of your comfort zone is that you get to get good feedback and positive reinforcement, and be supported by the person that you love the most, right? And so you should trust their feedback when they say, you know what? That wasn't your best move. You don't have to feel offended, because they're coming from a genuine place of love, right? And then when they're supporting you and saying, get out there, you can do it, it's coming from a genuine place. They watched you grow, and they know that you're ready. And so I've always said that it's a beautiful thing when you're in business with your spouse and you guys get to, strengthen each other. You get to support each other. You get to fill in those gaps, right? Because where he's strong, when I'm weak, when I'm weak, he's strong, or vice versa. When he's weak, I'm stronger. So, those areas we get to complement each other, support each other, and build an even stronger foundation and empire, because two are better than one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I was thinking about, well, it said that you guys embrace the notion of being in love and in business and happily confess that you can have it all. So let's speak to those couples and just encourage them why they should understand and embrace the fact that they can have it all, that they don't have to settle.
Well, the thing is, I would say, for me is, becoming, why not? And, for me, becoming a better listener. I remember my mom teaching me years ago that to always embrace change. Nothing stays the same. And that is so true because, coming up in August, 20 years of marriage, I can't love my wife the way I loved her 20 years ago. We have all both grown and evolved, and we're different people today. Mm-hmm. So I've learned to love her the way she needs to be loved versus the way that I need to be loved. I learned to be a better listener, right? I learned to honor her wisdom. So instead of me, I look at everything. We look at everything like as a team, as a couple, like Eric said earlier. When we first started out working together in entrepreneurship, we were making a lot of money, and I was, I was making all kind of bad investments. And because she trusted my judgment, and say, okay, I'm gonna trust you, go do it. And I was making some bad investments. And what I learned from that, and what God showed me is to always honor her wisdom, because she can see things in people that I can't see, and that's what makes us so strong. And what couples need to understand, you can't have it all because you got 4 eyes, 4 ears, 2 brains. Yeah. So you need to look at that as an asset. Coming to the table.
And you can have it all, but not all at once.
Right.
So then it becomes a matter of prioritizing. So for us starting out in business, we had goals for ourselves. We had a shared vision for where we wanted to take the family, where we wanted to take the the business. And then we had individual goals. We had individual visions. But then we set priorities because, God first, and then it's us, the kids, and then business. And so we had to make sure that we were prioritizing what was important to us. And so I think that's so key because you guys know when you're in business, that balance can be way off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? If you're not careful, then you can sacrifice something that's important to you, but you're not giving it the sufficient attention. And then it falls away and you look up like, how did we get here?
Right.
And so you have to set those priorities and be very intentional about staying committed to family time. So we involved our kids. Our kids were very young when we started in business. They were 4 and 6 months old. So in the beginning, we involved them in the business. And so now, they understand business and, they're excited to join us even more as they get, more mature and older. So, just having those priorities and sticking to those commitments, when you do that and have a vision, then you can have it all, but not all at one time.
And you know what? You hit the nail on the head, because that was one of the things that I wanted to ask about. How do you balance it all? When we read your bios, we see the books that you've written. We see the nonprofit. We see that you've worked at corporate America. We see that you've excelled in sales. So my question was going to be, how do you balance it all? Because a lot of times as couples in business, we wear so many hats. This day, you wear your mom hat one moment, your entrepreneur hat, then your marketing hat. Then when you're taking care of the family, it could be the chef. It could be almost like the chauffeur driving the kids around, and then you still want to spend quality time. Were there certain boundaries that you had to establish in order for all of this to work seamlessly?
Yeah, that's the key word, boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, we knew what roles each of us played, right? As husband and wife, as mom and dad. Again, those have to be the priorities, because it says in the Bible, what profit a man if he gains the world and loses his soul, right? And so we were very, very intentional that, first of all, we had the spiritual foundation, but that we all operated in our respective roles, because in the beginning, when we were building the empire, we were running, right? Remember, we were like burning the candles at both ends.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure that, the things that had to be done in the house, like we both had to chip in.
Yeah.
Right? We had to chip in, and we made sure that we carved out and set boundaries around established family time, and made sure that we took vacations, and then we had vacations with the kids, and
it was rough in the beginning. I'll be honest, because because I didn't know how to turn it off. To be honest, I type A personality. I want to make all the money, and I just I took the business with us everywhere, to dinner, to the kids' games or whatever. I could not turn the business off. And then finally, Chereace would tell me, like, look, you know what, you're way out of bounds. And So, again, I've learned to be a good listener.
Are you sure you guys aren't brothers in some kind of way, shape, or form? We could literally be at a gas station. We could be eating and just, hey, next thing you know, he's having these conversations. I was like, how did we wind up with a new business partner? We're supposed to be eating dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, it's just brainstorm.
You love it on one hand, right? But then you're like, okay, come on now.
Yeah.
You do have to have those boundaries, because if you don't, somebody's going to be in their feelings at some point in time, right? Yeah.
That is true. So I noticed that you guys started a 501c3, the Richards Foundation, the Richards Group Foundation. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The Richards Group Foundation, we started in 2011.
Okay.
And for me and Chereace, one of the things that we wanted to do was to give back to the community. Initially when we started out in entrepreneurship, growing up, coming from very humble beginnings myself, it was all about, let me get the money, let me make all the money I can make. And, once you've made a lot of money, you've driven Bentleys and traveled the world, it all gets old. I always say you only can eat a steak so many ways.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to, what are you doing for the community and for your family? So for us, we started the foundation to go back in the inner city to teach and pour back in the kids, and to teach them to see beyond their circumstances.
Yeah.
So one of the communities that we adopted, Brentwood, which is called Brooklyn Manor Project, over in Northeast DC, right off of New York Avenue. That's where I grew up. And my mother was a prayer warrior, and it was 7 of us in a 3-bedroom apartment. My mother was a prayer warrior, and she just embraced all the kids in the community, and she just gave. And then, when she passed, one of the things again that we wanted to do is just go back and make a difference. So I adopted that neighborhood, and now I go back and I pour back and give back to a lot of the kids in that neighborhood. And here's what I can share with you guys that's so amazing. Every time I'm in that neighborhood, it is, I feel a sense of peace that surpasses all understanding. For me to just put back into those kids, I can see myself in those kids. And here's what I can tell you. I always say our community is our responsibility. And we should learn, we should earn, and then we should return. So when I'm pouring back into those kids, what I found is that these kids in the hood, all they want is someone to tell them that it's possible.
Right.
We have a responsibility, to go back and to pour back into our community, and not depend on the government or no one else to do it. Our community is our responsibility. So we have a deep passion for the foundation, and we love doing that and serving, and we do it all, all year long.
Wow.
Well, that's something that we have to always do. We have to really impart into our legacy. And when I say that, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's the business." No, you know what the legacy is? What you just did. Because what you have, the skills and the character that you have, when you go and you start imparting and encouraging that into the youth, that you're passing it down. So now they have an inclination of what it looks like to be success, to have a marriage that can work in business and have a successful marriage. Because other than that, they won't know what it looks like. A lot of the children that we come into contact with, they only know a single family. They only know blue collar job that's working for, nothing wrong with retail, but the fast food restaurants, and maybe become an assistant manager, making $35,000-$40,000, all they can look forward to. But they don't know about, okay, instead of working there, becoming a manager, owning your own McDonald's, own chain. And see what you just did, you passed down a legacy because you imparted into the children, the youth, something that no one else can take away from them. It's not a business. It's not money that from, how we could create generational wealth. But what you have imparted now is your legacy, not only into your own children, but the other children, or everyone that you come in contact, that you decide that you're going to impart that wisdom and that knowledge. That's your legacy that you're leaving.
I think really important. So if someone is listening, if you could type that in for me, you learn, you earn, and return. Because I think that's really, really going to be key in this time, because it's really important. When you look at some of the young children, they're looking up to just your basketball players, your football players. Let's show them what we can do. Like, look, this, Stan and Chereace, they built a business. They're entrepreneurs, and it's great. We do need doctors, we do need lawyers, we do need accountants. That's all great, but you can create multiple streams of income. You can earn, own your own business. You have so many skills. Look at what's on the inside of you. And like you said, encourage them. Start pulling that out of them. And they say, wow, Mr. Richards came back and he owns his own business, and he travels, and he gives back to the community. Because you know how people rapidly spread negative information? It needs to spread like wildfire. You can do what Mr. Stan and Miss Chereace has done, and you can come back and give back to your community. And it's like a domino effect, because we can't depend on anyone else to educate and to pour into our children. We've got to start doing this on our own and start pouring back into the communities. Because I think about it, when I was younger, everyone wanted to be, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a teacher.
Right.
Now it's like,
or fireman.
Fireman.
Nobody wants to be a police officer nowadays.
Oh my goodness.
They don't have a good reputation right now.
Let's talk about our business owners and what they can do for the community. I honor a lot of these the athletes that are doing things. I think like LeBron James opening his own school. But those are the types of things we need to also teach them, that these are things you can do. You can give back to your community. There's so much, and we need to expose our children to that. If not, they're inside of this little box, and we want them to live outside of that box.
We have quite a viewership tonight. So put in the chat box what city and state you're located, and also share out this broadcast. Start a watch party, because this is some great wisdom, some great knowledge. That I'm telling you, what we have here.
You learn, you earn, you return. Mentoring matters, the gift that keeps on giving. I love that. I love that. And just think, and I want to encourage couples out there that are listening, don't be afraid to step out, to be that leader. We're going to have followers, but be a leader. Step out and demonstrate that you can make a difference. We need to step out and demonstrate that your marriages can win. Step out and demonstrate the entrepreneurial space. There's so much that our kids can glean from us. And we just have to take the time and just continue to pour into this, because a lot of times it may seem like our kids are not listening. But have you ever had those conversations? For anybody that's listening, if you have kids, you talk to your kids and they're like, yeah, okay. And then it's like at one of those most one of those moments, they just pop out, and all of a sudden they're starting to talk about. You're like, oh, wait a minute. So you were listening to me. It's resonating on the
That
inside of them.
happens all the time over here. That happens all the time. My sons they'll be quoting us and things like that. And I'm like, man, I've been talking to you for 2 years about this. And now you can hit me with a quote. I was like, okay, you're getting it.
And then,
It's so down in there.
yeah, so it's amazing. It's amazing. Now, I have something for all the couples out there that are listening. Do you guys have one suggested resource that you feel that couples should not be without in this day and age, or a resource that the two of you particularly use?
Yeah, we have, I mean.
I say the Bible.
Yeah, definitely the Bible.
Hey, look, don't leave home without it.
I know that's right. You got to put it in here though, so you never leave home without it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you were talking earlier, Eric, about the importance of just protecting our mind.
Yeah.
And always developing our mindset. And I believe that that's so key. And so for us, Stan and I, you know, we constantly invest back into our own personal development. And so we have a Bob Proctor program that we invest in, and we study every single day, because change happens through repetition. Right. And so I think it's important. Somebody said the Bible. Yes, we gotta make sure, no matter what you're embarking upon, that your spirituality is the foundation upon which everything is built. So that's key for us. And so then making sure that we're developing ourselves every day. Like if we want to be making quantum moves in quarantine, then we have to come out of this very differently. And so, you know, how are you spending your time during these days, right?
Yes.
How are you just Netflixing and chilling every day? I know it's comments on social media, which I'm watching, and we have those moments too, but we have to make sure that we're constantly investing in ourselves, so that when we come out of this, what is that next big move that we're going to be prepared to make? Like, we need to start that now. Right.
You know what?
Yeah.
But that seems to be the most difficult decision for people today, is to invest into themselves. Like people like yourself and I, we're always wanting to teach and build up. But the thing is, it comes with a cost. Because just like we invest in ourselves, when we say invest in ourselves, when you invest money into something, every time you go to the store and you go to Macy's and what is it, Bloomingdale's, and you buy something, you're investing into their stock. But turn your money around and invest in yourself. You need to add value to yourselves so you can add values to others. Because if you don't have no value to add anybody, then they're not going to want to. Why would we invest in you? And you got to be an example to invest in yourself. So it costs money. It costs money for us to go and get trained by Andy Henriquez to become a master storyteller. It comes money to invest in becoming a certified life coach, or extra John Maxwell, or become a licensed financial. So you have to go and study and invest into the test, and and build a team. It takes money. Time is a big investment into yourself. Now, how many people out there that they know they want to do something, but they don't want to pay? It might cost $49 to enter into a program to get training, become a licensed financial advisor, or a speaker, or a coach, but they don't want to pay the money. They want you to give it to them free, but that's no investment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time, Eric, that the people you're looking at today is not the person that I was 14 years ago. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in our personal development. And I've been coached and trained by them all. Dr. George C. Frazier, Les Brown, Tony Robbins. The first book I ever read, I was 44 years old, by T. Harv Eker. It's called The Secret of the Millionaire Mind. And then I was actually trained by T. Harv Eker,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Today, I'm a certified coach with Bob Proctor, a certified
Okay.
consultant. So Bob is my coach now. That costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. It costs money.
See, here's the thing. We've been taught to invest in cars, clothes, houses, even education, but not personal development. And
Exactly.
all the time, your money will never outgrow you. I tell my sons that all the time. Your business or your money will never outgrow you. If you make $1 million and you're used to making 250,000, you're gonna lose the other 750. I've done it before because you're not ready yet up here. So we constantly invest in our personal development and growth.
Now, and Sakeisha and I, we work with couples all over America. And sometimes we wonder, how we come across couples and they're having issues in their relationship. And we like, hey, why don't you buy our book, our workbook, or invest in one of our courses or something. And you know what? They rather not spend that money to save their marriage. They'd rather go and pay a divorce attorney thousands of dollars versus to try to work on their marriage and make it work so they can stay together and won't break up a family or their relationship, which they had invested a lot of time into. They'd rather just give up and say, okay, let's go pay thousands of dollars to a divorce attorney, and rather than get a book or take some time out and get a coach or someone to help them.
They're looking at it like a cost and not an investment.
Right.
When I tell people, to work with me, here's what the investment is. They'll get, wow, that much money? I'm like, well, look how much it's going to cost you if you don't work with me. How's it working? What you're doing, how's that working for you? You've been doing it for 20 years. How's it working for you? Right. Okay, if for me to work with Dr. Frazier or Les Brown or Tony Robbins, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to work with these guys. That's the best money I've ever spent, because not only my life has been changed, but now my children's children and community lives are being changed.
That's that legacy.
Absolutely. But you have to sow to where you want to grow. And that's funny. Someone else is putting that on the screen. You have to sow to where you want to grow. And it's important, if you want to stay where you are, that's fine. But I want to have a greater level of impact and influence on the people that we're called to serve. And you have to constantly be, I'd say, growing yourself so you can continue to add value. So you can pour into others. When I'm depleted, I need to be filled back up, but I don't want to be filled back up to the same level. I want to keep going.
Exactly.
And you have to be able to just constantly invest that time. And it's some of the things that we will invest in, and there's no judgment against parents, but for me as a parent, I do not want to hear $150 for sneakers. Let me see what you've put aside. What can you do in terms of a business? What can you do for investment? Generate an additional stream of income. All of this, just trying to keep up. And okay, what are you doing? You're spending this amount of money, and after a couple months, you're not going to want them anyway. That's money down the drain. You want something that's going to generate a return on your investment.
That's part of what we do as far as the communication finance section. The finance piece, we like to help and teach people how to build and retain wealth, not just for their current generation, but their future generation. It's a simple thing as a life insurance policy, right? Because everybody goes cheap. Oh, I'm going to get the cheap one. I'm giving an example, so hopefully somebody out there will look into it, right? Oh, I can get a $400,000 life insurance for $20 a month, right? But guess what? You ain't going to get no money.
I think that's on their side, right? But we still moving.
Okay, we're back. We're back. See, now look at it. They didn't want me. See, the devil didn't want me to tell this here tip, right? Okay, here it goes. Here it goes. Listen, because right now, you have to die within those 10 years for your beneficiaries to get any money, right? But That's because it's cheap, right? That's cool. But now you want to get what we call an IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance, right? With that develops cash as you go, and it's a permanent life insurance. So now, like for my kids, for example, right? Build and protect wealth. So I start them out now. By the time my daughter graduates college and she's getting ready to buy her home, right? Maybe she's coming out, maybe she hadn't got married yet, so she can buy her own townhouse. She can have maybe $100,000 to $150,000 tax-free, take it out, go buy her house. She owns her townhouse. She didn't have to pay any money back. And then she has something of her own, something tangible. And she still has a life insurance, so that something happens to her beneficiaries. So that's just one tidbit. And then think about it. When people get sick, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, if you got a 401k, you really can't pull any money out, but you can go into your, right, you got to pay Uncle Sam. You can go into your IUL, pull money out. If you got a $500,000 life insurance, you can go pull $250,000 out and live, you know, off of that, pay your bills. That's some simple things that can make or break a family, and still and continue to live and build wealth and protect that wealth once you have it. But how many people really know about that?
They don't. They don't know it. And that's something that I'm so passionate about. Just educating people on the power of life insurance and the fact that you can use it as a vehicle to get out of debt, to build wealth, and to retire tax-free.
Exactly.
And our community in particular, Eric, I mean, you're preaching to the choir with me. I'm like, yes. And this is what I try to communicate to people, the importance of, like you said, you had policies on your kids. We did the same thing. Because we used it as a vehicle to save for their college. And if they got scholarships or decided not to go to college, they would have that money to start the business. They would have money in their policies to buy their first home. But here's the key: getting insured while you're young enough and while you're old enough, right? Because like with Stan, we have our own personal story with him being diagnosed with cancer, cancer, over 5 years ago. And so that alone would make him uninsurable even today, because he still has some treatments associated with that. And so that would be devastating if your family is now unable to get the coverage that they need because of a sickness, an illness, COVID-19. We don't know how that's going to change underwriting going forward. And so our community needs to understand. They need to get with us.
Yes.
But even more, we also used it for business as well.
Right.
To go in those contracts, use monies, make business investments, and then put those monies back. So these are the things that we've learned over the last 10 years that we go out and we share with people to try to lift our community up and tell people, instead of you going and buying a Mercedes, you need to have $1 million IUL policy.
There you go.
Because most of the time, I always say this, and some people get offended, but a lot of times in our community, we can't even afford to die.
That's true. That's true. You know what you always see on Facebook? GoFundMe.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what? The IUL is also an asset.
Yeah.
You get ready to go buy a home. When they see you got $250,000, $300,000 in your IUL, that's your asset.
Yeah.
They won't even ask you for anything else. You get approved like that.
Yes.
You know, and then there's retirement funds, accounts out there that only the 1%ers know about. Man, you can retire and get like $120,000 tax-free every year for the rest of your life. And if at any point you want to pull that money out, you can pull like $500,000 out tax-free.
Yeah.
Everybody think about their 401ks. You know, oh yeah, I got $100,000 in my 401k.
No, you
now,
don't.
you get ready to go pull it out, you got to pay Uncle Sam 20%. So your 100,000 is $80,000.
Right.
Not so with the. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
But
Me too.
I want people to ask questions now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and God forbid if like for me, guys, in 2008, I'll share this quick story. For 18 years, I had been putting $50 to $100 in my 457 plan at Metro at my job. And after 18 years, I had accumulated 130,000. And when in 2008, when the market crashed, that 130,000 went to 60,000 overnight.
Yep.
You know,
and see, that's the thing about IULs. You never lose any money. If the
You
market
never lose
crashes,
any.
it stops you at zero. And there's even products, while the market crashes, you can still earn 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
Everybody losing money, and you still gaining.
I tell people, listen, I don't like to lose no money.
Exactly.
You know,
You know what they always say? Oh, it's gonna bounce back. Okay, but yeah, think about this. You had 100,000, you dropped like 40, right? I have 100,000, it stays there. So when they come back up, they gotta start at 40. By the time they get back to 100, I'm at 200.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And I think it's just about people getting educated.
Yeah.
And when they hear our stories, and you know, it makes them more aware. Because this is what I tell people now, you know, 8 years ago when Stan and I got exposed to using life insurance as a vehicle to invest money, to save money, we didn't know. We didn't know. And the initial reaction was being skeptical, not believing. And then we had to ask ourselves, like, just because we don't know, does that mean it's not working? It doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Like, hello. And so when we were able to get wise counsel from someone who was doing what we wanted to do, where we wanted to be, then we were able to take that wise counsel. See, it's one thing to hear a thing. Knowledge is only power when you put it into practice, right? When you use it. And so we started to invest that way. And now, you know, is what we teach our community.
Good. You know what? I'm going to put it out there since we talked about it. For all those who want to know more about wise investments and life insurance and retirement accounts, you can actually go to our website, marriagescanwin.com, click on wealth building, and then there's a piece on there that says a free needs analysis. We'll give you a free needs analysis on what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to retire, or whether you're trying to build money for a home or education, whatever it can be. And also, you know what we're going to do too? If you haven't looked at the bottom of the advertisement on the screen, go get your phone out, text WIN, WIN, to 407-258-1246. You can download a free copy of our book, Marriage Can Win, to help you free to help you overcome communication, financial, sex in your marriage. So now, y'all got a gift tonight.
All right. So I have a question because I know that we want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I would like to continue just going. I know we could go for like another hour or two, but you guys are also the authors of several books, and I wonder if you can just take a moment and share with our listeners about the books.
Well, my book is called From the Bus to the Bentley, No More Limit. And they can find my book on my website, stanrichardsonline.com. But this book is so powerful because it talks about my life story growing up in the inner city, actually graduating, couldn't read, pretty much taught myself how to read, overcoming drug addiction by God's grace and favor, drove a bus for 18 years, and then became a full-time entrepreneur and started the Richards Group Corporation. So this book is great for anyone who wants to go from their bus to their Bentley. Please reach out to me, and I would love to share with you how I was able to do that.
Put the book up to the camera so they can see. There you go. That's a handsome man on there.
2011.
Okay, now share your book as well.
All righty. Faith, focus, action. The journey to becoming who you are. So my book is loosely based on my life, but the journey and some of the obstacles that I've had to overcome and the way I did it. And then I give opportunity for people to kind of journey what they are learning about their own selves through, you know, what I've been able to overcome.
Okay. Somebody said that they were looking for the text. It's at the bottom of the screen there. Hang on a second. Yeah, Chereace. Okay. Yeah, they were asking about the text.
They wanted to see your website, so we wanted to make sure they got the information. You want to put that on the screen one more time?
Okay. Yeah.
Make sure that they know how to contact them. You go to ChereaceRichards.com to make sure that you stay connected with them and can get copies of your book. It's available directly through your website. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
All right. So what is next for the Richards?
What's next for us? We got a lot of things growing.
Like Chereace shared earlier, 5 years ago, I was at the top of my game, traveling, doing really well, and went in for a routine physical and realized I had prostate cancer. And by God's grace, I've been healed. So we started 5 years ago a movement we call Healthy, Wealthy, Wise. So what we're doing through the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise movement is really reaching out to our community and talk about the importance of health, because I was literally addicted to food and couldn't shake it. That's a whole nother story. But now that I've been blessed to get in the best shape of my life at 58 and a half years old, running 3 to 4 miles a day. And I want to share my story with how God had used that challenge to pretty much change my life. That was an emotional impact. And then Chereace, she does the wealthy piece with the financial services. And I'll let you share that piece.
Yeah, so Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise is all about building a community of people to have healthy bodies, strong minds, and to build prosperity. It's what we need in our community. So Stan is very passionate about health because of the journey that he's been on. And so for me, it's to your point earlier, Eric, it's all about me educating people on the importance of life insurance and using it as a vehicle to build wealth, to pay off debt, and to retire tax-free. So it's something I'm super passionate about. And then with the coaching piece, just showing people how they can create the life that they want. Yes, they can. God created us to create. And so we got to move past our fears, get outside of our comfort zone, and do the work that God has called us to do so that we can serve and impact the world. But you can't do it by yourself. And so we're excited to partner with people on this journey so they can be healthy, wealthy, and wise in every area of their life.
Yes.
All right. So in closing, we'd like for you guys to give just what's your one suggested tips so that marriages can win. What's your greatest tip that you would give to a couple so their marriage can win?
I would say always be open for change and grow. And it's so key in relationships, in order to, because life is changing all the time. And we always have to embrace change. So I'll say that's the first thing to open your mind for change.
Open your mind for change?
Yep. And I would say communication is key. Communication is key. And one of the biggest things that we've learned is that I have to love Stan the way Stan needs to be loved.
Yeah.
Yes.
The way I need to be loved. And so communication helps you to express, yourself and what your love language is, so that, you can love your spouse. You can give your spouse what they need, not what you want them to have.
Yeah. I think that's key, because you have a lot of people, they're attempting to love their spouse, but I can't love him the way I need to be loved. I need to love him the way he needs to be loved, and that is important.
Before we go, before we call this the evening, I also want to let everybody know, Sakeisha and I are also embarking on a project. We were talking about defining moments in our marriage. And what we did is we joined with 12 other couples, and we're producing a book collaboration called Struggling to Keep the Vows. And right now we're in the pre-sale stage, and we still have a few spots left open. If you buy our book now in the pre-sale stage, we will also mention you in our acknowledgement in our book. Right now, you can get a copy at Sakeisha.strugglingtokeepthevowsbook.com. That's Sakeisha.strugglingtokeepthevowsbook.com. marriagescanwin.com. And in there, we tell you, along with other 12 couples, what we did to get over the issues that cause us to struggle to keep the vows and not end up in divorce.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, Stan and Chereace has definitely been a blessing. It's been a pleasure. We love the conversation tonight. We want to thank everybody for joining live via Facebook. It's been amazing. I mean, the comments are still coming across the screen.
Let me see what we got here.
Okay, yeah, planning.
Tax-free money.
Yeah.
Oh wow, here's a long one.
Communication is key. Love each other the way each other needs to be loved. Communication helps you express your love language. Chereace Richards. All right. So we just want to thank everybody out there for joining us. This has truly been a blessing. Stan and Chereace, we would love to have you guys on the show again. We definitely want to stay connected with you guys. This has just been an awesome time. And I really think it's times like this just to be able to pour. Like you said, we're doing some changes in quarantine, and it's time to just pour into other couples, because we do have couples out there during this time that are struggling to keep their vows. Like right after the pandemic, you know, we've had conversations, and some of them are saying, they had to get used to having their spouse at home, but that's amplifying what was on the inside of them. So we think this is an awesome time to be able to share with them the fact that they can pivot, they can shift. You know, we understand things may transpire, maybe a job loss that, or unexpected occurs, but you can bounce back. You can reinvent yourself. You do need to invest in yourself. There's so many nuggets of wisdom. I'm sitting here, I was taking so many notes. You make sure you learn, you earn, and you return. I love that. That's like really, really sticking out in my mind. But you guys have been such a blessing, and we want to tell everyone else, thank you again.
Right. And so before we go, remember, you have to be the change that you want to see in your relationship. Until next time, bye everybody.
Good night.
We want to thank you for joining us today on our broadcast.
Let's keep the conversation going. You can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or subscribe to our YouTube channel under Marriage Can Win.
Also, you can join us 24/7 on our Marriage Can Win podcast at www.themarriagecanwinshow.com, and also connect to us at marriagescanwin.com.
Remember, you can be the change you want to see in your relationship. Until next time, see you soon.